GB News Radio. It's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton tonight as another shocking case of a dangerous trans criminal gaming the system forces Nicola Sturgeon into a humiliating climb down on trans prisoners in women's jails. The fumbling First Minister's political car crash hits breakneck speed.
Trans women. You haven't answered that question.
Well, that's not the point that we're dealing with
That's
here.
the question I'm asking.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans
So
woman.
there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman.
No, there is.
I'll explain why her toxic embrace of an extreme woke ideology means the game is now up for scheming Sturgeon. That in my digest next. Then I'll get the thoughts of my superstar panel. Joining me tonight, Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. Then, a bombshell interview you don't want to miss. World-renowned lawyer Alan Dershowitz, who was wrongly accused by Virginia's Hugh Frey, makes a public plea for Prince Andrew to fight to clear his name. He explains why his personal vindication could be just the tip of the iceberg. Live with me at 9:35. Plus, with King Charles reportedly desperate for a ceasefire between his warring sons, should the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, broken a peace deal for Prince Harry to attend the coronation? Ingrid Stewart and Nina Mishkov are going to duke it out on the clash at 9:20. And Harry's biographer Angela Levin has the latest analysis on Prince William's fears that his treacherous brother could overshadow the occasion with a Netflix-worthy stunt. She's live at 10:20. Also coming up, social media erupted this weekend over this X-rated Sam Smith video. And this morning, Richard Madeley was publicly shamed into a pronoun apology.
A shot of him, Sam.
Sam Smith uses the pronouns they.
They, yes, sorry.
But was forcing that on-air mea culpa really necessary? That's our big debate in the media buzz at 10:30. As it's revealed that the Army's Information Warfare Unit was used to spy on lockdown critics, are dystopian government truth and nudge units harmful to democracy? Neil Oliver is going to unleash what is a chilling example of state overreach at 9:50. After being demonised and ultimately sidelined by Australia's authoritarian COVID mob, is Djokovic's record-breaking win down under the ultimate revenge? England football legend Matt Letizia uncancelled on that at 10:45. We'll have tomorrow's newspapers and a new Greatest Britain Union jackass on the way as well. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. That digest on a shocking day for scheming Sturgeon, just a couple of minutes. But before that, the news headlines at 9 with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story on GB News tonight. Firefighters and control room staff have voted for their first nationwide strike over pay in 20 years. The Fire Brigades Union said its members have experienced a 12% drop in real-term earnings since 2010. The union says it won't announce any dates until after it meets its employers. That meeting is scheduled for the 8th of February, where the FBU says it hopes to receive a revised pay offer. Meanwhile, teachers are planning to go on strike in England and Wales on Wednesday after last-minute talks between themselves and the government failed today. Union leaders said there was no offer from the Education Secretary trying to bridge the gap between the two sides, and that the Education Secretary herself has squandered an opportunity to avoid strike action. But Gillian Keegan says it was a constructive meeting.
We've been quite engaged over a long period of time, and clearly it's difficult because we want to halve inflation and they want to have rises that will fuel inflation. But we are having constructive discussions about future pay, about workload, about how to make sure that we can retain and recruit teachers.
Meanwhile, hundreds of union members have been outside the gates of Downing Street tonight, protesting for their right to strike. Members of the RMT, the Fire Brigade Union and Communication Workers Union were amongst those demonstrating against the anti-strike bill being passed through Parliament, which guarantees minimum levels of service for the public. The Health Secretary has today announced £1 billion in extra funding to boost NHS frontline capability. Steve Barclay says the government will work to bring response times back to pre-pandemic levels. The plan also including 5,000 more hospital beds and 800 new ambulances, as well as expanding urgent care to take place in people's homes. Labour says, though, the plans aren't enough to tackle the NHS's problems. And the Prime Minister has been busy defending his handling of the Nadhim Zahawi tax row today, saying he acted decisively. Rishi Sunak has been under pressure to reveal what he knew about Zahawi's tax affairs. The Prime Minister says he sacked the Conservative Party chairman yesterday, immediately after the ethics inquiry found there had been a serious breach of the ministerial code.
All these questions started coming to light about Nadhim Zahawi. I asked the independent advisor to get to the bottom of it and to provide me with the facts. I was able to make a very quick decision that it was no longer appropriate for Nadhim Zahawi to continue in government, and that's why he's no longer there. That's what I've done. It relates to things that happened well before I was Prime Minister, so unfortunately I can't change what happened in the past.
Lastly, international news, and the US Secretary of State has called for an easing of tensions in the Middle East whilst he was on a visit to Jerusalem following a spike in violence in the region. On Friday, Israeli forces killed 10 Palestinians, most of whom they say were gunmen, and that's after a Palestinian man carried out a gun attack in East Jerusalem, killing 7 people. Antony Blinken said it was everybody's responsibility in the area to calm tensions rather than inflame them. And that's the latest GB News on TV, online and DAB+ radio. Back now to Dan Wootton tonight.
Finally, embracing a nonsensical, uber-woke and extreme ideology that her people oppose is catching up with scheming Sturgeon, the Scottish First Minister, who is on the ropes over allowing male rapists who farcically claim to have transitioned into women's-only prisons. Following the horror case of the double rapist Adam Graham, who dishonestly became Isla Bryson to avoid a men's jail, comes Andrew Burns. Well, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? After being jailed for stalking a 13-year-old girl, scumbag Burns decided to become Tiffany Scott and was about to be moved to a jail that aligns with his new gender over the weekend, despite being viewed as the most dangerous female trans prisoner in Scotland. Astonishingly, this case prompted Alice J. Edwards, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on torture and other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, to speak out. She tweeted, #Scotland, female prisoners have a right to be protected from violent sex offenders no matter how they identify. Where is the common sense? Clearer guidelines are needed. Only such overwhelming condemnation from fellow globalists forced Sturgeon into a humiliating U-turn, with the SNP reluctantly announcing the move of all trans prisoners would be paused. Now, such a concession to common sense is a hammer blow to the stupidity of Sturgeon's sick gender recognition reform bill, which even allows for child abusers and rapists to self-ID while on trial, forcing their victims to refer to them on the stand by their new spurious pronouns. After the pause was announced, Sturgeon's arch-rival over the protection of women, J.K. Rowling, tweeted, "But Nicola Sturgeon's made it very clear that every women's group and safeguarding expert raising concerns about her supposedly progressive agenda is a bigot. What can possibly have changed? Surely not her cast iron principles." And it was under that context that Sturgeon, losing the support of ordinary Scots, suffered the biggest metaphorical car crash during her time running Scotland in this interview today.
My question is, are all trans
Look,
women women? You haven't answered that question.
Well, that's not the point that we're dealing with
That's
here.
the question I'm asking.
Trans women are women, but in the present context, there is no automatic right for a trans
So
woman.
there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman.
No, there is. There is circumstances in which a trans woman will be housed in the male prison estate.
Is there
because
any
of the
context
nature
in
of the
which a
crime.
woman born as a woman will be housed in the male estate?
Look, we're talking here about trans women.
And I'm now asking about women born as women.
I don't think there are circumstances there, but...
So it's different for trans women?
Well, yes, and I'm not...
So they're not equal?
OK then, doesn't that make you a trans exclusionary radical feminist, Nick? You know, a TERF? Something you think is such a bad thing? The crown has well and truly slipped off Queen Nicola. Scotland's NHS is in crisis. Drug deaths remain at an all-time high in Scotland. Her illegal independence referendum has been rightly rejected by the courts, and ordinary, honest, hard-working Scots are standing up against the culture war she is waging, where poor trans folk have become her hapless punching bag. Just like with her woke hero, Jacinda Ardern, voters have woken up to the fact the reality of scheming Sturgeon is nothing like the slick PR puffery. The game is up, and she'll soon be forced, just like the New Zealand PM, to give up. But to respond now, my superstar panel, top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit Party MEP and political commentator Belinda de Lucy. What a car crash, Carol Malone. Nicola Sturgeon has to admit publicly she's a TERF, exactly what she has been driving her despicable hate mob towards J.K. Rowling for all these years.
Didn't she say the other day as well that anyone who opposed her gender reform bill was either a transphobe or a bigot or a misogynist? That was the three things. And that she's talking about most of Scotland when she says that, because most of them don't agree with her gender reform bill. You know what I find really astonishing? This could all have been avoided with a bit of common sense. How could she not think it was wrong for a double trans rapist to be put into an all-women's prison? How could she not know, not only that was wrong, but there would be a reaction to that? And I'm just, you know, it just defies belief. And the answer to all of this is really simple. You do not put trans women into a women's prison. And I don't care if they're violent sex offenders. I don't care if they're rapists. Any trans woman should not be in a woman's prison. Currently, here's a figure for you. Currently, in the UK, there are 230 inmates in the UK that are currently living under a different gender. Of all of those, 97, that's 42%, are in jail for sex crimes. Of those, 44 have been convicted of rape, 14 of child sex offences. Now, these are
And compare that to the actual female population.
Oh, God,
and the figures are totally...
And compare it to the male population in jail. Only 20% of those are sex offenders. So it is astonishing to me that she didn't get this was going to happen. But I think, and even last week, I wrote about this in my column lead last week, even on the day that was all blowing up last week, there were SNP MPs saying that this guy, and I would not call her by her female name, this guy, Adam Graham, was saying he deserved fairness.
Oh, yeah.
His two
And
victims,
Labour MPs too.
the two women he savagely raped, deserve fairness. But have you ever heard Sturgeon talk about those two women?
And,
all of
by
this?
the way, one of those women who was raped spoke out.
She did. Yeah.
Over the weekend, anonymously to the Sunday Mirror. And she said there was absolutely no way that her rapist could be a trans woman. Of course, Belinda, that adds to this bloke's wife, who has also spoken out saying that he's transitioned to game the system. So the game is up for Scheming Sturgeon because she's a TERF now too.
Absolutely.
And being a TERF, by the way, is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, is it?
Being a TERF is a badge of honour, as Nicola Sturgeon is proving. I mean, surely this brain fart moment in human history has to come to an end now. It is no wonder that a law based on lies is unravelling. I have a great respect for anyone who wants to identify how they like, wear whatever they like. But if you are going to say a trans woman is a woman, then that, unfortunately, is a falsehood. And it also increases risk to women and girls. And what Nicola Sturgeon has done, she has vindicated every single woman that has come under complete fire, being called a bigot, a transphobe, being called horrendous things for just saying women need their single-sex spaces. They've all been vindicated. She's been a very unlikely, unwilling hero, because she's literally used her platform to prove that this is unworkable.
But she's also rendered her own reform bill a dud, because this just shows what can happen.
Now, Benjamin, you have been, let's be honest about this, in the woke mob, attacking J.K. Rowling and attacking folk like her for months and months and years and years. Do you admit you have got this spectacularly wrong?
I mean, the last person I ever want to talk about is J.K. Rowling, because it doesn't tend to lead to anything constructive. But look, what I think, you know, I definitely disagree on a broad sense with the other three people on this programme tonight. But what I can't deny is that Nicola Sturgeon has done more to damage and undermine transgender people's equality in this last 2 weeks than Carol or Belinda ever could have, frankly.
Because she is waging the culture war, isn't she? She is waging the culture war, and trans people are just her little battering ram. She doesn't give a damn about trans people. She cares about woke ideology.
No, that's not true at all. But look, what is common sense is that if your crime is that you attacked a woman, then that is the part of this story that matters of why you shouldn't be in a women's prison, not your gender identity.
Oh,
but
God.
It's not...
It's not true. Most men who commit sexual crimes against women don't even get charged. So how do you know which man is safe or not based on what he's been arrested?
No, I don't think you understand what I just said. I meant the fact that this person committed rape against women is why they should not be in a women's prison.
So you're a TERF too?
But, well, no,
you're
that's
in
just...
the TERF club too, then?
No, I'm not a TERF.
So you admit that this Adam Graham and Tiffany or...
Andrew Burns.
Andrew Burns, to use his real name. You admit they should not be in women's jails. Do you admit that?
Of course they shouldn't, right? Because
so you're a TERF?
Because their attack was on a woman. And I would just point out that...
You're a trans-exclusionary radical feminist too. No, you are a TERF.
I've got common sense. Try it, Dan. You know what? The truth is that if you actually look at this person in question... they have not sought legal recognition. They have not sought healthcare for being transgender.
That's what her bill is about.
But this is my point.
3 weeks under
She wants
3 months.
She wants to scrap all of that.
No, hang on. So this is not an example of what the bill talks about, because this person hasn't followed any of the
reform bill. Do you still support that bill? Well, I think that is despicable, because you know that means that someone like this Adam Graham can legally go into court and force their victim to call them she and her and by their fake name Isla Bryson. That's what this law
does. And Ben,
does.
why don't male prisons accommodate vulnerable men in a separate section? Why is the burden of men's mental health always forced on women? We have nothing to do with these vulnerabilities. Let them have a special space for vulnerable trans women and vulnerable males, many who are under, at risk in males' prisons as well, and have it in a men's prison environment, just a separate wing. Why can't they do that?
Well,
no, they have to go after women all the time.
Well, hang on, I think that's a perfectly sensible idea, right? But
so you're a TERF.
There's not...
Okay, you're a TERF. Great. This is brilliant.
Let me just say...
You're a TERF.
Here is the ultimate illustration of why this bill can never work.
It's not because it is wrong to try and apply the challenges and the traumas and the problems that regular trans folk who are as hard-working as taxpayers as everyone else, it's wrong to judge them on the basis of the prisoners among their community.
What we're saying is you should not be allowed to self-ID. There should be some medical intervention.
Because
some
it
psychiatric
was always
intervention
going
before
to
you
be
can.
used for people
To
by
gain the
nefarious
system.
means.
No, I'm sorry.
And actually, that has undermined genuine trans people who have spent years going through trauma to get what they are. But, Dan,
But
what
actually,
are the
do you know
group-
the great conclusion from today? The brilliant conclusion from today is that folk like Benjamin Butterworth and folk like Scheming Sturgeon have spent years trying to attack so-called trans exclusionary radical feminists, have tried to make them the target of hate mobs, like we saw in Scotland last week with those despicable folk holding the signs "Decapitate TERFs" with SNP MPs in front of them. And actually, what they have proven today is that Benjamin Butterworth is a TERF, Nicola Sturgeon is a TERF. There is nothing wrong with being a TERF.
dear.
What being a TERF is about is protecting the rights of biological women, not undermining the rights of trans women who are doing the right thing.
Hear, hear, Dan.
My lawyer will be on the phone after that. I'm not a TERF. I deny
You'd exclude,
it.
you'd exclude a trans woman from
because
jail.
if you commit a crime, then you give up all sorts of civil rights. That's not like everyone else. Anyway.
Belinda Toulouse, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, thank you so much. Still to come, joining me live from Florida, Jeffrey Epstein's former lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, explains why Prince Andrew should fight to clear his name against the allegations of Virginia Giuffre, just like he did. It's a controversial interview. You won't want to miss it at 9:35. But up next in the clash, should the Archbishop of Canterbury, woke Justin Welby, be trusted to broker a deal for Prince Harry to attend the coronation? Ingrid Stewart and Nina Mishkov go toe-to-toe. But what do you think? Dan at gbnews.uk. Tweet me using the handle at GBNews. Our poll running there too. The clash in a couple of minutes' time.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this
you
morning.
even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind, and we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for The Clash. The coronation row rumbled on this weekend after the Mail on Sunday exclusively revealed that the new king wants his spiteful son Prince Harry at his coronation with his royal-hating wife Meghan. Charles has reportedly asked the woke Archbishop of Canterbury and friend of the Sussexes Justin Welby to broker a peace deal between his warring sons so the couple can attend the ceremony at Westminster Abbey in May. However, sources have spoken of Prince William's fears his brother will use the event to stage a stunt that could steal the limelight after Harry's explosive memoir and their Netflix series. So, should the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, broker a deal for Prince Harry to attend the coronation? Let me know your thoughts. Dan at gbnews.uk. Vote in our poll at gbnews on Twitter. The results shortly. But to help you make up your mind on this, I'm joined by the editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Seward, and the journalist and broadcaster, Nina Mishkov. Ingrid, I'm sorry, I'm really worried about Justin Welby getting involved in this. Sources over the weekend have described him as being under the spell of Meghan and Harry. He's on their side, Ingrid. So if he's the person doing the brokering of the deal, I worry about what he's going to concede.
Well, I don't feel for one moment that an invitation to the coronation should be a deal. There is no brokering of any deal to be done. Harry either comes or he doesn't. And I don't think for one moment that King Charles will get involved in brokering a deal. Maybe he should certainly be the one to ask Harry. I don't think Justin Welby should ask Harry, because Harry, as we know, those that have read his book, keep saying, well, you know, his father is obviously weak, and his father likes to avoid confrontation. But this is one confrontation. All he's got to do is pick up the phone and say, darling boy, come to the coronation. And if Harry says, I don't want to, well, and then Charles says, your problem, your decision. No one else should broker this deal. And I don't think the Archbishop of Canterbury should get involved. It's a father-son thing. And the whole of Harry's life, he's known that his father is going to be king, and that's coloured his childhood, coloured his life. And of course he has to be there. And it would be unthinkable if he wasn't, and would create far more fuss if he wasn't there.
Well, personally, Nina, I don't want him here. I do not want him here, Nina. He has slagged off his own family. He has slagged off our country. He has attacked William and Camilla in the most brutal of ways. Why does Charles even want to put his eldest son and his beloved wife in the position of having to deal with this creep and his awful wife?
Because he is only telling the truth. As he has lived it.
Have you read the book?
I have read the book.
It's got a lie. It's got a lie in virtually every page.
It has not got a lie. I read it properly as a book, Dan, not just to see if I was mentioned in it, like you were. I enjoyed the book. It's beautifully written, and I believed.
Not by him.
I am not alone. I mean, it's the biggest selling book, you know, in publishing history in those sort of terms. The thing is, with Justin Welby, anybody who brokers a deal has to be somebody that both sides respect. And presumably King Charles respects Welby, and I know that Harry and Meghan because of what I've seen on the Oprah interview, that he gave them a blessing before their own wedding. They obviously have some connection with
Oh,
them.
yes, he thinks Meghan's a great humanitarian, which means that he's a terrible judge of character because she's anything but that, Nina.
You cannot say that.
Oh, I can.
You
I just did.
absolutely cannot say that.
I did, and I stand by it.
Meghan is...
She is a fame-hungry actress. She's not a humanitarian. Actually, do you know that she
a very
changed her entry on
successful...
Wikipedia a few days before her relationship with Harry became public? Previously, it had said model, and she changed it to humanitarian when she knew that her relationship was going to become public.
She gave a speech at the United Nations way before she met Harry.
Oh,
she had her own career. She's very successful. She's either called a fourth-rate actress, or whatever. You can't have it both ways. You can't say she's a brilliant actress when she's, that she's lying because she's a brilliant actress, which people have said. You can't have it both ways. She's a very successful woman in her own right, and what she did in this country when she was here, when she was allowed to, the good that she did at Grenfell. She's done all sorts of things, and she continues to do humanitarian things.
She's also trying to tear the monarchy apart.
She's not.
Look, I want to bring Ingrid in on this.
She is not trying to tear the monarchy apart.
She is, Nina.
They are
my
merely
word,
rebutting the claims.
And you're very
that were made
naive if you
against her.
think she's not.
She was vilified in the press.
But Nina,
for 5
just
years.
hold up, because I want to bring Ingrid in. Because Ingrid, this Mail on Sunday report suggests that Harry, for example, might say to Justin Welby, I don't want to attend the coronation unless I know for sure that I won't be stripped of my Duke of Sussex titles. There's also talk about horse trading over whether Archie and Lilibet will retain their titles. This is so uncouth.
It's so uncouth. I can't believe it's actually true. I'm not saying the Mail on Sunday don't have great stories, but this one, I think, is a bit fuzzy around the edges. It's
written by their political editor, Glenn Owen. I mean, it seemed impeccably
Also, it's not about Meghan. It's really, for once, it's not about Meghan. It's about Harry and his father. Harry must attend. He absolutely must. And I don't think for one moment that he will behave badly or try and create a scene, because he will be overawed.
Well, Ingrid, you say it's not about... You say it's not about Meghan, Ingrid, but I've actually written a column today for the for the Daily Mail, for Mail Online, the website, making the point that the reason that Meghan has disappeared from public view, it's been the great disappearing act over the past couple of weeks, is because she is wanting to play a crucial role in the negotiation with Welby and with the royal family over whether the couple attend the coronation. And I'm sorry, I don't think we should be listening to what Meghan has to say about this at all. Come if you want to. We know you're going to come, by the way, because you're only making any money from Netflix or Spotify because of your proximity to the royal family. So the idea that Charles is going to give in...
As one on this situation. I totally agree. It's not about Meghan. For once, it's not about Meghan.
It's not about you.
It's not. Well, the thing is, it's not about Meghan, and the reason that she has disappeared over the last month is because it's been about Harry. It's been about Harry's book, Harry's story.
So you don't think she has an ulterior motive, Nina?
No, she has not got an ulterior motive. Why should she? I have no idea, and you have no idea. But my thinking on this is that she has stepped aside to give Harry his space. It's his story. It's not her story that he's been telling. It's his story. And the thing
so
is,
she doesn't like stealing the limelight from her husband, does she, Nina? There's no evidence of her doing that for the past 3 years.
She's not stealing the limelight from her husband. I mean, the thing is, this woman has been so vilified. What has she done? She was vilified day after day in the press for years.
She
and
wasn't.
Years and years.
Nina, this is what annoys me so much. That is a point-blank lie. Go back and look at the coverage for the first 2 years that she was in the royal family.
It was
glowing. It was positive.
Too popular. It was only when she became too popular she had to be brought down, and there's a couple had to be pushed aside.
Is that narrative true?
I mean, Nina is obviously, and absolutely Nina has every right because she's a very renowned journalist. She's obviously believing everything that Harry said. And I have actually, I've listened to the book which I think is actually even better than reading it. And I mean, half of it, I don't think Harry even knows what he's talking about. Most of the words, he doesn't even know what they mean, but that's fine. It's very nicely written. But it's not Harry.
Not by him. Not by him.
Well, no, we
not
know
by him.
No, we
he had
know
a ghostwriter, editor-in-chief of
we know
Majesty
there was a
magazine,
ghostwriter,
Ingrid
but they
Stewart,
all
and
have-
the journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Thank you both so much. But who do you agree with? Should the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, broker a deal for Prince Harry to attend the coronation? Phil on Twitter says, if our king has asked him to try, then yes, absolutely. Jan says, absolutely not. Harry and Meghan deserve no olive branches or second chances. They chose this cruel and hurtful path and must expect consequences. And from Ronnie, Mr Welby should busy himself with theocratic works, not brokering celebrity deals. And wow, your verdict's in this one. This one is overwhelming. Just 6% of you. With Nina saying the Archbishop of Canterbury should broker a deal, allowing Harry to attend. 94% of you saying absolutely not. Coming up, with the Mail on Sunday exposing the British military for spying on COVID-sceptic citizens during the pandemic. Are these sorts of truth and nudge units harmful to democracy? Our very own Neil Oliver has his say on this disturbing story at 9:50. But first, should Prince Andrew battle to clear his name after Virginia Giuffre's credibility is called into question? Celebrity lawyer Alan Dershowitz, who was wrongly accused by Giuffre himself, has some fascinating advice for the discredited Duke. He's live with me from Florida straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview channel 236.
And YouView channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So this weekend has seen the biggest move yet in the escalating campaign to prove Prince Andrew's innocence. As you know, Virginia Giuffre has accused the Duke of York of rape and sexual abuse in 2001, the first of 3 alleged incidents said to have taken place in Ghislaine Maxwell's former home in Belgravia, central London. The same scene where this photo of the 3 of them was taken by sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, though its legitimacy has been disputed by both Andrew and now Maxwell. Describing the night in Maxwell's home, Giuffre claimed in a 2011 interview that Andrew began sexual activity in the bath before they went into the bedroom to have sexual intercourse. But in a sensational intervention from the family of Maxwell, an image has been released of the said bath that they say discredits Giuffre's accusation because it is too small for 2 people. Maxwell's older brother, Ian, added that he was happy for the disgraced Duke to use the image if it helped his case. Andrew appeared to give up the chance to exonerate himself beyond doubt last February when he settled with Giuffre for a reported £9.7 million, although we don't know the exact figure. But her credibility has now been thrown into doubt after she recently withdrew allegations that Epstein's former lawyer, very accomplished man, Alan Dershowitz, sexually abused her as a teenager, saying, "I now recognise I may have made a mistake." Now vindicated, Dershowitz has been outspoken that Andrew should never have settled and is now urging him to contest the settlement. And I'm delighted to say that Alan Dershowitz joins me now live from Florida. Alan, so great to have you here, and there's so much to unpick in this matter. So you have now been exonerated. Giuffre lied about you. Do you think she is a liar, and is it possible that she also lied about Prince Andrew?
Well, this certainly is relevant to any effort he makes to try to reopen the case. There are other relevant facts, too, and that is, remember that she said under oath that she was a resident of Colorado, and that has been doubted and questioned as well. And so there are many, many possible ways for the prince to reopen the case. Her recognition about me, she now says, here, I put it on I have a book about this called Guilt by Accusation, and the cover now says, I now recognize that I may have made a mistake in identifying Alan Dershowitz. That in and of itself obviously is relevant, but it's not the only thing. I was very disappointed when the prince decided to settle the case. I understand there may have been pressure on him. I was hoping he'd go forward and use all the evidence in the case to demonstrate the truth of what happened to him. Look, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I don't know the size of the bathtub or anything else. But I wish there had been litigation, and I wish the whole truth had come out at a trial rather than in a settlement, which may very well be reversed by the royal family.
So a couple of specifics. You're obviously the lawyer for a period for Epstein. Do you accept that Giuffre was a victim of Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't know. I never met her. I never heard of her. I have no idea. That's between her and Epstein. I know she was not a victim of me, and she now recognizes that she may very well have mistaken me for someone else.
But she tried to ruin your life, Alan. She tried to destroy you.
She succeeded in destroying much of my life. I was, one of the most sought-after speakers on college campuses in the world. I was called by a newspaper America's most prominent and Jewish advocate for Israel. That all stopped when...
Yeah, you were destroyed. Your reputation was trashed internationally. And the reason why I'm asking this, because, of course, you are now completely vindicated. The reason I'm asking this is that many folk, including me, were very quick to rush to judgment to rush to judgment of Andrew because he made this ludicrous decision back in 2011 to go and spend 4 days in New York with Epstein, which was just so stupid. It was not the behaviour of a royal. But now that we see what Giuffre did to someone like you, an innocent man, we're going back and thinking, hang on a moment, has she now done the same thing to the Duke of York?
Well, I think the media has largely failed in its responsibility in the Me Too movement. You know, women must be taken seriously and their charges must be taken seriously, which means they must be investigated. And the media doesn't today investigate false charges. They're afraid of being called victim shamers. They're afraid of being attacked. And so what happens is that women are not being taken seriously. Their accusations are not considered the way accusations made by other people are considered. And the media failed in its responsibility to look hard at all the background of all the accusers in the Me Too movement. Many of them are accurate. The Me Too movement has done an enormously effective job in really exposing predators, but it has also caused a lot of false accusations.
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. And perhaps Andrew is one of the victims. Alan, do you know Prince Andrew personally? Because I'm told that you have been assisting him. I don't know whether you're assisting him directly or assisting him via intermediaries, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I've met him 3 times. He came to my class at Harvard Criminal Law. I was introduced to him by the Lady and Lord Evelyn Rothschild, and I was invited by the British Consul General in Boston to have a dinner with him, with my wife. And I don't consider him a friend. I don't have his phone number or his email, but I would like to help the truth come out in any way I can.
So you think he's innocent?
And for falsely accused people. Anybody who has doubts about the accusation, I would like to help to make sure that there's a deep inquiry into the truth. The truth is what's important, not accusations. That's why I entitled my book Guilt by Accusation, because today...
Which is such an important point. And we see it happening time and again. We see it happening time and again. But look, you are one of the world's top legal minds. I know you can't know for certain, of course you can't. But from what you've seen, knowing what you know about Giuffre and knowing Andrew personally, do you think he could be innocent?
Well, I think he should try to reopen the settlement. Remember, there are many grounds for reopening a settlement. Fraud on the court, a previous agreement that wasn't satisfied, any kind of misleading or misconduct that led to the settlement could avoid it. And I would hope he would fight very hard to try to void that settlement. Remember, the settlement does not contain an acknowledgement that he's guilty. It does contain, obviously, lots and lots of money. Don't know exactly, none of us know exactly how much, but a lot of money paid, but that could have been as a result of pressure from the royal family. So I would hope it gets reopened. I would hope ultimately there would be a trial and the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth would come out.
And are you assisting Prince Andrew in any way?
No, his lawyer, a superb lawyer, Blair Burke, is my former student, and I consider her a friend, and we've talked about lots and lots of cases over the years, including this one.
Okay, fascinating stuff. Well, look, I personally think it is important now to have an open mind. I think Andrew has made lots of stupid decisions over the past few years. You know, that terrible BBC interview, that was a car crash, going to see Epstein. But look, after what's happened to you and after the way Giuffre tried to ruin your life, personally, I now have a much, much more open mind about where this is going to go. So I really appreciate you taking the time. The former lawyer,
Thank you.
Epstein, Alan Dershowitz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Now, coming up in tonight's media buzz, as sacked Tory chairman Nadhim Zahawi hits back at a headline which mentioned the noose being tightened around his neck. Would the reaction have been different if it was a left-wing ethnic minority MP being spoken about? Well, my superstar panel are going to tackle this, and we'll have the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages just after 10. But next, as it's revealed that British Army was used to spy on COVID-sceptic citizens, are these dystopian actions from our government a threat to the UK's democracy? Neil Oliver, tonight's outsider on this important story. He's live with me straight after the break.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider. And a shocking report from the Mail on Sunday has uncovered how critics of lockdowns and vaccine mandates were secretly spied on by our own British Army. Their information warfare unit, known as the 77th Brigade, was set up in 2015 to investigate hostile state actors and violent extremist organisations outside the UK. But once lockdowns arrived, they began to secretly spy on anyone who dared to question the mainstream narrative. A military whistleblower admitted it is quite obvious that our activities resulted in the monitoring of the UK population, monitoring the social media posts of ordinary, scared people. These posts did not contain information that was untrue or coordinated. It was simply fear. Now, a number of high-profile figures were monitored by the spies, including the former Tory minister, David Davis, and the journalist, Peter Hitchens. So, Neil Oliver, these types of truth and nudge units are really starting to harm democracy. I know that we were up against it, right? But the army? tracking people who were pointing out truths about lockdown? This is surely a new low, Neil.
Well, it is, but I also don't think any of it's a surprise.
No.
I mean, many of us have known for, years now that people speaking up about, the virus, lockdowns, the so-called vaccines, they were being shadow banned, cancelled, ridiculed, demonised, and yet watched by the authorities. People were talking about that even as it was all unfolding months and years ago. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it was all there in the choice of the word lockdown. You know, lockdown's prison language. That's the world that lockdown comes from, because that's how the authorities chose to see us, and that's how they wanted to treat us as criminals who needed to be in digital chains, who needed to be locked down, not for our good, but because that kind of control over our lives was what was being, sought by the powers that be at that time. Millions were tricked by propaganda, as it turns out, by nudge units, as it was admitted a long time ago now, into thinking all the things that so many people thought. We're all in danger. We're all in it together.
I know.
All the parties and all the other breaches of regulations showed it was about control of the little people by self-important mini tyrants.
I know, and it's one of the worst periods in our recent history, and the repercussions are grave, I believe, for democracy, Neil, because the MSM never fought to defend folk like you or me or the brave epidemiologists who questioned the official government narrative. But the worst thing is these disinformation units were in lockstep, Neil, with social media companies who could actually dial down our voices by either banning us or shadow banning us or hiding our posts. It's actually chilling, the dystopian lens that the government went to conspire with the MSM and social media companies.
Yes, it is. I like many others, I've had stuff that's been taken down from YouTube, where I was questioning the products that were advertised and sold as vaccines. I've had that content taken down, along with countless numbers of other people. But democracy, you raise the D word, but I don't honestly think that we do live in a democracy at the moment. The last vestige of so-called democracy is the opportunity to vote. That's how people have been trained for generations now to think of democracy, that you get a vote. And at the moment, that was never really the proper manifestation of the meaning of democracy. But now, when the parties are so aligned with one another, when they're two cheeks of the same bottom, as people keep on pointing out, the vote has become meaningless. And that was the last vestige of democracy. So I don't see that we are necessarily living in a democracy at the moment. I spoke on Saturday night about zero trust, which underlies the digital ID, which is there's a consultation process out there by the government that ends on the 1st of March, after which it'll go through and we will have digital IDs by the end of the year. And I spoke about the foundation. This is not my language, it's theirs. It's zero trust. We are treated with zero trust. The authorities operate from the premise that we are guilty until we prove ourselves innocent. That we're to be regarded as criminals unless and until we can demonstrate that we're not.
Oh yes, now, because our freedom of thought, our freedom of thought,
I don't know.
No, because our freedom of thought and our freedom of expression, Neil, was at the time considered dangerous. But actually, the danger comes from the fact that the debate was shut down.
Yes, and we were right. The things that we were saying that had to be shut down, apparently, have been proven to be correct. One after another, the so-called conspiracy theories were levelled at, that was what we were accused of being, of offering up conspiracy theories. But people said at the time the lockdowns would be catastrophic. We were proven right. People said at the time that there were problems with unrolling on this scale largely untested so-called vaccines under emergency use authorization. People predicted that there would be consequences of that, and people have died and people have been hurt. So that was another conspiracy theory that went out of the window. We were right. The really really, truly troubling thing is that although this has been exposed, although Bill Gates is out there in the world saying that those vaccines don't work as advertised, even Bill Gates, that there's been no apology, no acknowledgement. No. That's the real danger that we're in, because we have rumbled them, or they have rumbled themselves. They don't care, and there are no consequences. At the moment, democracy as a word is just flapping in the breeze.
Yeah, indeed. And so many people who should feel ashamed about what they've done over the past few years instead just want to forget about it and move on, and certainly don't intend to apologise. Neil Oliver, live from Stirling. Thank you so much. Neil back, of course, Saturday night, 6 p.m. here on GB News. But coming up, with Prince William fearful of Harry marring their father's coronation and the King said to be considering a TV tell-all ahead of the summer event, we've got plenty of royal rumours to get stuck into. Distinguished journalist and Harry's official biographer, Angela Levin, weighs in at 10:20. Also, after a headline reported the noose tightening around the neck of sacked Tory chair Nadhim Zahawi, would this language be acceptable if it was aimed at an ethnic minority MP on the left of British politics? Well, that's going to be a big debate for our superstar panel straight after the break.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as sacked Tory chairman Nadhim Zahawi is slammed for calling out this headline about his noose being tightened, is Tom Harwood right to suggest there would have been outrage if the same comment had been published about a left-wing ethnic minority MP? I'm going to debate that with my superstar panel in the Media Buzz next. Joining me tonight, Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. With the King clashing with his oldest son over attendance by the Sussexes, is Prince William right to fear that a Harry stunt could overshadow the coronation? Well, Harry's official biographer Angela Levin analyses that and whether it's time Charles hits back with a TV tell-all of his own. She's live at 10:20. After having his dreams crushed by the authoritarian Aussie mob last year, is Djokovic's record-breaking win at the Aussie Open the ultimate revenge against COVID hysterics? England football legend Matt Le Tissier has a lot to say on this at 10:45. Also coming up tonight, social media erupted this weekend over this X-rated Sam Smith music video. And this morning, Woke Central presenter Richard Madeley, he's not woke, but the show is, was publicly shamed into this pronoun apology.
A shot of him, Sam.
Sam Smith uses the pronouns they.
They, yes, sorry.
But was forcing that apology really necessary? We're going to debate that at 10:30. Plus, scheming Sturgeon's embrace of toxic trans extremism has sparked a somewhat satisfying political meltdown.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman?
No, there is...
Go broke, Queen Nick. There will be another blistering takedown of Turf Sturge when I crown my first greatest Briton and Union jackass of the week at 10:50. We're reclaiming the word turf tonight. Turf is no longer a put down. It is a great thing. We're going to have the first newspaper front pages for you in mere moments too. First, though, the news at 10 with Polly Millhurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. Teachers and firefighters are the latest public sector workers to announce today they're going to strike in disputes over pay. Firefighters have voted for their first nationwide strike over pay in 20 years. The Fire Brigades Union, however, saying it won't announce any strike dates until after it meets with its employers to allow for improved offers to be put on the table. Teachers' strikes, though, will go ahead on Wednesday in England and Wales after last-minute talks between the unions and the government failed. Union leaders said the Education Secretary squandered an opportunity to avoid strike action, but Gillian Keegan disagreed.
We've been quite engaged over a long period of time, and clearly it's difficult because we want to halve inflation and they want to have rises that will fuel inflation. But we are having constructive discussions about future pay, about workload, about how to make sure that we can retain and recruit teachers.
Meanwhile, tonight, hundreds of union members were outside the gates of Downing Street protesting for their right to strike. Members of the RMT, the Fire Brigades Union and the Communication Workers Union were amongst those demonstrating against the anti-strike bill that's being passed through Parliament, which guarantees minimum levels of service for the public during periods of industrial action. Now, the Health Secretary has today announced £1 billion in extra funding to boost NHS frontline capability. Steve Barclay says the government will work to bring response times back to pre-pandemic levels. The plan also includes 5,000 more hospital beds, 800 new ambulances, as well as expanding urgent care to take place in people's homes. Labour says, though, the plans aren't enough to tackle the problems in the NHS. The Prime Minister has been busy defending his handling of the Nadeem Zahawi row today, saying he acted decisively. Rishi Sunak has been under pressure to reveal precisely what he knew about Zahawi's tax affairs. The Prime Minister says he sacked the Conservative Party chairman yesterday straight after an ethics inquiry found there had been a serious breach of the ministerial code.
All these questions started coming to light about Nadeem Zahawi. I asked the independent advisor to get to the bottom of it and to provide me with the facts. I was able to make a very quick decision that it was no longer appropriate for Nadeem Zahawi to continue in government, and that's why he's no longer there. That's what I've done. It relates to things that happened well before I was Prime Minister, so unfortunately I can't change what happened in the past.
And lastly, the search for a woman who's gone missing in Lancashire whilst walking her dog will enter its fourth day. 45-year-old Nicola Bully was last seen on Friday on a footpath in St Michael's-on-Wyre. She was walking with her spaniel before she went missing, although her dog has since been found. Police say they're keeping an open mind about what might have happened, but they do not believe Miss Bully was attacked. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. More now from Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now on our Media Buzz. I've got the first front pages here. Let's take a look at the Metro first, actually. Its headline is "No Time to Lie," reporting that claim by the Kremlin that Boris Johnson told fibs about Putin threatening to kill him. We've actually got it on tape, and I'm going to show you what Boris said and the Russian response. The Independent reveals a police roll call of disgrace with details of dozens of officers facing the sack for crimes including grooming and a knife attack. My Superstar panel, back with me now. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and the former Brexit Party MEP, third anniversary of Brexit tomorrow night, Belinda de Lucy. Now, in his response to being sacked by the Prime Minister yesterday, Nadeem Zahawi has condemned the media coverage of his tax dispute. The now former Tory party chairman wrote, "I'm concerned about the conduct from some of the Fourth Estate in recent weeks. In a week where a member of Parliament was physically assaulted, I failed to see how one headline on this issue, the noose tightens, reflects legitimate scrutiny of public officials." The disgraceful headline in question was printed by lefty rag The Independent, and GBNews political correspondent Tom Harwood made the pertinent point. Can you imagine the response on social media if a paper had published the noose tightens about a left-wing, ethnic minority MP? So, Carol Malone, I think Tom actually makes a very pertinent point.
Completely.
Obviously, journalists should be doing their job and uncovering bad things that politicians are doing. But just imagine the outcry.
Oh, yeah.
The absolute outcry if a newspaper, a right-wing newspaper, had run a headline saying the noose tightens about an ethnic minority.
Starmer would be on his hind legs screaming about it. It just strikes me in this country that there is one law for the left and there's one law for the right in terms of behaviour. And we've seen it recently in the Commons, where the Labour MPs bullying their own women on their own side, bullying the women on the other side, and nothing happening to them. You know, do you remember, who was it? Was David Cameron said, "Calm down, dearie," to someone on the benches, and he was castigated by the left for that. He was. What do you remember? Yeah. And yet the Labour MPs can menace women and they can bully them on the floor, and nothing happens to them. We saw the same thing, you know, when Labour was being accused of anti-Semitism. We saw people making anti-Semitic comments and nothing happening to them. Whereas if anyone on the right had done it, they'd be screaming for them.
This is rank hypocrisy, isn't it, Benjamin?
I mean, first of all, the idea that nothing happened to anti-Semites in the Labour Party is nonsense.
No, it isn't. No,
Jeremy
it's not.
Corbyn isn't a Labour MP because of his conduct on that issue.
Yes, but a lot of his MPs would say things and they would still be allowed to continue in their jobs representing their constituents while they were being investigated. All they thought they had to do was go on Twitter and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that." That's happened a lot with MPs, Ben.
Well, calm down, dear. But
Look, I should clip your ear for that now, shouldn't I?
Physical assault, shall we crying now?
Look, on the question of this tightening the noose, I mean, look, I've no idea why they use that as a headline. I think in the context of the two murdered MPs, aside from party or ethnicity, it should be clear that's not appropriate.
Yeah, but apart from Tom Harwood and us talking about it here,
no one said
and Nadeem in his letter, no one.
But the truth is, I mean, I'm not here to defend that terminology, but I think Nadeem Zahawi is using that to distract. This is a man who, after a journalist uncovered the reality of his tax affairs, he spent a lot of his considerable fortune, he spent a lot of money on trying to stop that being published. He tried to sue the journalist so we didn't know about his tax affairs. Well,
Has he broken the law?
He's paid a fine
Has he broken the law?
Paying his tax.
Has he broken the law?
Well, he's paid a tax money. Is that?
Has he broken the law?
No, he hasn't. Why don't you ask him?
No, he hasn't.
But hang on.
Do you think HMRC
it's
are
an
always
odd
right?
defence. Hang on, it's an odd defence.
Do you think HMRC are always right?
Well, they were right in this, that's clear, because he admitted they were right, and he paid a fine and something like £3 million in tax.
No, he didn't.
The reason he probably
paid $1 million
the
as a penalty.
fine is because he knew he had a major job in government, and it would be absolutely impossible for him to have continued to battle with HMRC over that period. Now, I'm not saying that he shouldn't have disclosed it, but remember, you've got Zahawi's camp at the moment saying there's a whole side of the story that you don't know about.
The side of the story is that you had a man who was under investigation from HMRC, who was appointed Chancellor to be in charge of HMRC. That's what you expect from far-flung, corrupt countries, not from Britain.
Can I just point out, though, that 10 days ago when this story first broke, the left were on their hind legs again, demanding at that point that he be sacked. And I think one of the questions you're asking here is, you know, was Sunak too slow? Was he weak in not sacking him? And I heard a Labour MP on the telly the weekend called Bridget Phillipson, the education shadow. She was saying, we knew the truth of this weeks ago. No, you didn't, love. You just heard rumours weeks ago. You didn't know if it was true or not. No, you did not know. You really did not know. Yes, what has changed? What's changed is there's been an investigation.
This is a whole culture now, isn't it? guilty until proven innocent.
This is
Welcome
Labour,
to the UK in 2023.
Listen, I think Rishi is weak on many, many areas,
but not this
and
one.
I'm highly critical of the Conservative Party, but on this he is absolutely right. The media have far too much power at the moment to dictate who's in power and who
Oh, yeah,
isn't.
they want Dominic Raab gone
They want
next.
Dominic, they're after a scalp.
And can you see how hard they're trying to get rid of Dominic Raab?
And he's the next head on the block.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Well, maybe
right
he shouldn't
that
be a bully.
He's not a bully, and neither has that been
And Benjamin,
proven either.
what's the definition of the word bullying? I think what's
Tell you to
happening
do it.
against Dominic Raab is utterly chilling, actually, because, you know, you can quite easily go into any government department and find 25 lefty members of the blob who are going to be more than happy to say, oh, this minister bullied me, in order for them to lose their job. It's chilling.
It turns out he's not actually. What he was doing was telling people to do their job properly, and if they weren't doing it, giving them a telling off. That's not bullying. That's telling you to do your job.
I think his French salad tomato across the room.
To Priti Patel
bullying,
as well.
please.
She dared to tell the civil service
What to
get
do.
a move on, deliver stopping
And
the
she
boats.
was a bully.
And she was a bully. The civil service think anything right of Karl Marx is bullying them, and that's why they're not delivering on what the Conservatives.
The truth is that
you're rolling your eyes at that, Benjamin, but it's true, isn't it?
I am, and I bet if we were doing this show 13 years ago, you'd be revelling in the bullying allegations that were put against Gordon Brown. So, you know, I don't believe that you simply don't accept that they're bullies. But the truth is that Nadeem Zahawi sold 20-odd million pounds worth of shares, put them in an offshore trust. HMRC said you should have paid your tax on it, and he tried to avoid it. He then tried to sue the journalist making this public knowledge. That is not someone who believes in free press. That is not someone who should be in public office. And he isn't really bothered about the news headline. He's trying to undermine journalists, holding people like him to account.
Can I just say, I'm sort of with him on a bit of this, because I was on Zahawi's side up until that resignation letter, where he tried to blame. There was no contrition, there was no apology, there was no acknowledging that he was the architect of his own destruction. And that really hacked me off a bit, because I thought you should at least say, sorry, this was a mistake, but he didn't do it. That said, I
just don't think we've hit the full story.
But Sunak was right to wait until the investigation was concluded, and he sacked him within 2 hours of that investigation being concluded. That is the right and proper way to do things,
but
not
also,
Labour's way.
journalists in this country need to wise up a bit.
Yes, they do.
Because they're, for lots of reasons.
Yeah, no, yes.
But also, in this case in particular, because do not just assume that HMRC get everything right. I mean, for example, there's a brilliant guy at this channel at the moment. I'm not going to name him, but if you read the newspapers, you'll know.
Yes.
He's engaged in a high-profile legal fight at the moment with HMRC. Let me tell you, he is right. He is completely right, and HMRC are completely wrong, but people are too scared to say that because you're immediately accused of being a tax.
But also what
happened... Thank God people here aren't running to be Chancellor, and that's what Nadeem Zahawi was doing, and that's why it really matters.
But exactly. But the point is, it doesn't just mean HMRC are right. HMRC knew Zahawi was in an incredibly vulnerable position because he'd just taken
they were right,
this
weren't
job.
they?
But don't you think the shame...
I don't know, actually.
But don't you think the shame of it all is...
He moved it into an offshore trust,
I don't know.
The shame of it all is
Wasn't
that
illegal.
this guy arrived here from Iraq, he couldn't speak English, he founded and built up YouGov. He could have been a really effective
But I think his parents
minister.
did have quite a lot of money when he...
But it doesn't matter. But
Yes, it is a great story.
He could have
It is
been
a good
an
story.
amazing minister.
It is a good story. Now, look, a video released on Friday has exposed a sickening attack from 5 Memphis police officers earlier this month. On the 7th of January, 29-year-old Tyree Nichols was forced to pull over on suspicion of reckless driving, and after trying to escape was then brutally beaten by this group of cops. Now, he would die from his injuries 3 days later. All 5 officers have been fired and charged with murder. Terrible story. However, seizing on this tragedy to stoke division in society, some of the left-wing media have claimed the murder was racially motivated. Yes, you saw the picture, despite the fact all 5 officers are black. Van Jones, one of CNN's principal woke commentators, sparked outrage after writing that the 5 officers were driven to murder by racism. And, of course, like night follows day, Sly News got in the act this morning as Kay Burley interviewed critical race theory extremist Dr. Scholar, who linked the attack to, wait for it, white supremacy.
Very much doubt that anything will change until we eradicate the source of this problem, which is white supremacy. Listen, the vicious and brutal, unjust...
black that killed him.
This is why I'm about to educate some people right now.
We've heard from his mum, Rowan Wells. She says that she hopes that his death
will lead to change.
I would like that too, but there've just been too many. From between Judge Floyd and today, nothing has changed.
Do you know what? I don't need to be educated by you, Dr. Scholler, let me tell you. And actually, if Sly News had any credibility, they would ban you from the air for being a blatant race baiter. Belinda Lucy, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, thank you so much. Coming up, social media erupted over Sam Smith's X-rated music video, and this morning, presenter Richard Madeley was publicly shamed for misgendering the music star. What a crime! But was forcing an on-air apology really necessary? We're going to debate that. I'll show you the video too. If you haven't seen it, you'll get a little taster of what everyone's talking about at 10:30. But next, as King Charles clashes with Prince William over the Sussexes attending his coronation, is William right to worry that a Harry stunt could overshadow the occasion? Well, Harry's official biographer, Angela Levin, is going to analyse that straight after the break.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Already to bless.
Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Panicking King Charles has enlisted the help of the woke Archbishop of Canterbury to broker a deal between his warring sons as part of his plans to allow Harry to attend the coronation alongside his wife, Meghan Markle. Now, according to a very well-sourced exclusive by the political editor of the Mail on Sunday, Glenn Owen, despite the monarch favouring the prospect of having the Sussexes join in the historic celebrations, Prince William is, and in my view, rightfully fighting the idea because of his concern the pair may try and overshadow the event and use it as a publicity stunt. Currently, it's not been confirmed whether the Duke and Duchess of Woke will even accept an invitation to the coronation, with both of them seemingly using the event as a bargaining chip to secure their precious titles. The official biographer of Harry, Angela Levin, joins me now. And Angela, I have to say, Prince William is right on this. I'm convinced of that.
Yes, so am I. I mean, first of all, he knows Harry better than any of us.
And certainly better than Charles.
And brothers know each other better than father and son. There's all sorts of strange emotional things going on there. And he would absolutely be able to read him. And he's disgusted by the revelations that Harry thought he could make about him, you know, invading his privacy, when Harry is known for being absolutely meticulous about keeping him, as he's got court cases waiting if people do, you know, knock a bit into his privacy. And he feels that he can say all sorts of things about William. He's lost his hair, he doesn't look like his mother anymore, and all these cruel things. And William...
Yeah, and he's painted him as a violent brute, which, by the way, is not
bully.
An accurate portrayal of William. It was just the fact that Harry had pushed him to the brink.
Yes. Well, he knows how to do that, you see. And so then it happens. And then William would probably be a bit annoyed with himself, but realises that this is what his aim was. And I think that he's actually said several times that he always wanted the death of his mother to make him rather than break him. And he wants to have a good, happy life and be as normal as he can be in his situation. Whereas Harry is out to destroy and is so jealous of him.
Well, it's a scorched earth strategy. That's what Harry and Meghan are currently operating under. And that's why I think King Charles is so naive, Angela, because William has this right. You know what will happen? Harry and Meghan, the red carpet will be rolled out for them. They don't give a damn. They're going to do some sort of stunt while they're here to steal the attention. So William suspects they'll do something like go to a poverty-deprived part of London to prove that they're down with the people, exactly, compared to the royal family. But the bigger point is the damage they will cause when they go back to America and they use everything that happened behind the scenes, all of the private conversations for their next book, for Meghan's autobiography, or for their next Netflix series or Spotify podcast.
Yes. Well, I mean, I don't see how a father can actually push aside the son who's supporting him and there to help him and who will be the next king for someone who hates living in this country, much prefers it in America, thinks he should come over here to fix the royal family, and the first thing he'll do is stop them getting involved with the press because that would be all to the better. Oh, yeah? What about you, mate, for your book? And he feels that, you know, he can destroy us. He also actually had the cheek to say that he thought he ought to help bring up two of their children.
Oh, I know.
Because...
well, he's purposely trying to wind William up.
Yes, and
the reality is, I don't blame William for feeling like he's so angry he can't even imagine. William, at the moment, from what I'm told, cannot even imagine being this far away from Harry.
It's not fair.
The despair and the anger is
and he
so
wants
big.
to protect Catherine as well, who's been so
and Charles should want
caring about him.
should want to protect Camilla, though.
Well, the thing is, when Meghan originally joined the family, I heard from somebody very, very close that he thought Meghan was wonderful. She was a breath of fresh air and she was fantastic, and they had so much in common. And like a lot of men, he can fall for a beautiful woman who wears quite a short dress and looks at him with her eyes up or down. I don't know how you do that. But, you know, she's she can actually make men feel very fond of her.
Manipulate.
And I think that this is what she's done to the Archbishop of Canterbury, because he thinks she's a wonderful woman. But by any means,
a humanitarian,
she is not
he describes her as.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
He's absolutely not. And also, how did she treat him? Very, very badly, because she said to all of us that they got married 3 days before. before we all saw them 3 days later. And he got in a real state and had to make an announcement that is actually a criminal offence. And he didn't do that. And he couldn't have married twice. And there had to be 2 witnesses. I mean, he got in quite a stressful situation. So how can you like that? She would know, Harry would know that actually they didn't really get married, but it was just a statement to stir things up. And how can you then trust somebody who does that to you? It's a real trip-up, isn't it?
It really is. Some speculation that King Charles might be considering a BBC interview, possibly with Jonathan Dimbleby. We'll remember that famous interview in the 90s when Charles chose Dimbleby, who, let's be honest, is close to Charles. He likes Charles a lot, to first admit that he had cheated on Diana.
Yeah.
What do you think of this idea of
I think it's a very bad idea. I think he and the senior royals, Camilla, William and Catherine, have all behaved with the most enormous dignity. They've carried on. They've been very busy. They've carried on what they had to do. And if you do practical things, you start forgetting all the nasty stuff
just do the
that's
keep calm
around
and carry
you.
on
And I think that he should continue with that. It's not our business to know the details of him and Harry. We can see for ourselves that it's disgusting what they're doing, and they have no right to be here, to be rude. How can you talk about your father and your family like that and then come to a ceremony that is very serious and look bored or push yourself in the front or get angry that you're not given the seat that you want? It said it was going to be bribed by saying he'd have a very good position in the cathedral.
Yeah, and he'd get to keep the titles.
And to keep the titles. Well, I think that's terrible.
Look,
I think that's terrible.
It looks like the Sussexes never change, because there have been more departures of their staff members, this time from Archerwells. It's been announced that the internal head of content, Ben Browning, and the head of marketing, Farah Taylor, will be resigning from the foundation later this year. That's just 2 months after 2 other senior foundation employees resigned within 48 hours of each other. So could it be, Angela Levin, that the Sussexes are too toxic even for Hollywood?
It's 16 people since they started Archwell, and they're all people who actually had very good careers.
But it's not
before
about
they
them.
came.
It's not about Harry and Meghan, Angela. It's not about them. It's everyone else. It's all of these
They're not good
16
enough.
people. They're not good enough. They're not good enough.
But they want to do it all themselves, you see, which is fine if they want to. But if they get it wrong and they haven't got it right, they probably blame the people that they're employing. And you can see, and also Samantha Cohen, who the Queen had worked for the Queen, the late Queen, for 17 years. She gave her to Meghan to spend 6 months or a year with her to help her. She couldn't stand it. She left. So, you know, all that is piling up. So she's not Miss Nice. She really isn't. And anybody who falls for that is actually, you know, like Harry did, is in a difficult position, because I think she brings out the worst in him. So, you know, if that's what you want, you'll get a surprise if you want her to be sweet and nice and charming. She can be, but she's also got another side which is really scary.
Well, let's just say the Sussex Survivors Club is growing by the month. Used to be an exclusive club. Now there's hundreds of members. I think you absolutely have a right to join. Harry's former official biographer, Angela Levin, of course, also the biographer of Camilla. Now, coming up in Uncancelled, after having his dreams crushed by Aussie COVID hysterics last year, is Djokovic's 10th win at the Australian Open the ultimate revenge? Football legend Matt Le Tissier is going to weigh in on this at 10:45. But next, in the media buzz, should Richard Madeley have been forced to make an on-air apology for misgendering the non-binary singer Sam Smith? My superstar panel back to debate that with more newspaper front pages too, straight after the break.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time to return to tomorrow's News Tonight now on our Media Buzz. More front pages in, straight to the Daily Mail. Oh my God, I can get on board with this headline, let me tell you. News of the IMF's predictions of slow growth leading to increased pressure on ministers to cut taxes. But the headline, why we have to cut taxes and go for growth. Who was it that was talking about that a few weeks ago? Liz Truss, maybe? Yep, should have listened to her. The Times leads with the news unions are telling members to keep head teachers in the dark over whether they will take part or not, leaving parents in limbo. My superstar panel back with me now. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone is here, alongside senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth and the former Brexit Party MEP and political commentator Belinda DeLucy.
Can we just say you're on fire tonight, Wootton?
Yeah.
You're really going for it, love.
Thank you.
We're liking
Thank
it.
you. It's because I've got you all with me.
I'm not sure it's that, but yeah, I'm on fire.
Now, social media has erupted this weekend over Sam Smith's new X-rated music video for his latest track, rather aptly titled I'm Not Here to Make Friends, which has sparked a major online debate about whether it should be age-restricted. Watch.
I need a lover. I need a lover. I need a la 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 la. I need a la 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 la. I need a la 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 la. I need a lover. I need a lover.
Now, earlier today, over on Woke Central Wake Up TV, Good Morning Britain, while debating whether the video was over-sexualised, host Richard Madeley was left in an awkward position when his co-presenter, Susanna Reid, made him apologise after he accidentally misgendered Smith, who identifies as them, they. Look.
A shot of him, Sam, spanking and simulating a very specific act with a scantily clad drag queen.
Remember that Sam Smith uses the pronouns they.
They, yes, sorry.
A shot of him, Sam,
spanking and simulating a very...
Carol Malone, he shouldn't have apologised.
Do you know, he should not have apologized. He didn't just... He was humiliated there. And Susanna Reid was sitting like the judge in chief there. Do you know, people can ID... as whatever they like. I really do, you know, do your best. Live your perfect life. But don't expect me to believe in what you believe in, and don't impose your values on me. And if I don't agree with what you say, don't tell me I'm a transphobe for it. It really hacks me off now that we're now living in this. Do you know, I read a piece today that said Scottish civil servants are being asked to sign their emails with their pronouns. So the assumption is being made that they agree with the ideology of this, which is outrageous. Well, yeah, who was it? There was another company. Oh yes, staff at the British Library are also being asked to use pronouns. So you're then enforcing this ideology onto someone who may or may not agree with it. It's entirely wrong. Sam Smith can be what, you know. Somebody, I think it was Ricky Gervais. His pronoun is it and he. And he had the you-know-what ripped out of him by people who were saying he was being totally disrespectful. Well, do you know that there are 100 genders, and one of them is an Astra gender, which means that you have an affinity with a star sky.
Let me finish this.
I want to finish this.
The 100 genders thing comes from me on Good Morning Britain 3 years ago.
So what I'm saying to you is, we're supposed to respect someone who wants to be of the Astra gender, who thinks they're a star, and yet if Ricky Gervais takes the mick, that's disrespectful. No, it isn't. If he wants to identify, then let him.
Speaking of people who think that they're a star, Benjamin Button. Benjamin Button, why do you love Sam Smith so much?
Well, first of all, I think there are 100 genders because people can use whatever terms they like to describe how they identify.
I'm not even having that ludicrous debate. Talk to me about Sam Smith. Why do you love Sam Smith so much? Talk to me about.
Well, I mean, first of all, Richard Madeley wasn't forced to apologise.
Well, he was.
As far as I'm concerned, you know, we all make mistakes. I'm anxious and I might get it wrong myself. But the truth is, Sam has asked to be referred to as they, them. And I think in the same way that I prefer Benjamin over Ben, it is a matter of common politeness. And that's what Richard Madeley was showing when he apologised.
Would you be horribly impolite to someone, or horribly offended that they called you Ben instead of Benjamin?
Carol always.
Well, I mean, I don't like it. But if you called me she, or if I called you he all night, would you be thrilled?
Would I be thrilled? No, I wouldn't. I'd
exactly.
Carol is a she.
You would, exactly, and Sam is a they. It's simple. You got it. Well done.
They is just a butchering of the English language.
It's not. It's really not.
What is it?
You know what? The idea of non-binary, which is where they comes from. People like David Bowie basically identified as that 30, 40
But he never asked us to call them they. But, it's ludicrous. It is a fake butchering of the English language. I take personal offence to it because I love our English language, Belinda. I absolutely love it. And you know what? I have a little test that I play, and Benjamin didn't want to play ball because he's too wise. But I speak to any of my woke mates, right? And what I do is I say, oh, tell me about the new Sam Smith album and whatever. Mark my words. Within 30 seconds, no matter how woke they are, every single one of them has referred to Sam Smith as he. Because Sam Smith is a he. Yeah. He's a man. And even if you believe in this thing that you should call people whatever pronouns they want, actually common sense just takes
This is turning into blasphemy laws. Like, I don't believe in gender ideology. That is my right not to believe in it. Therefore, I will not be complicit in validating someone else's fantasy. Everyone has the right to ID how they like, but not to compel or force speech on others. For example, I don't like being called a cis woman. I find that really offensive. However, I would never force someone not to call me cis because I believe in the right to free speech. And
I hate that too.
And it is an ideology. This is turning back to like the Spanish Inquisition and witch hunt trials. Richard had every right to say sorry, but you know in this current climate he was forced to say sorry.
Oh, he was forced to say sorry, Benjamin. You have to admit that.
No, he wasn't.
Susanna Reid is the main presenter of that show.
She's made a point.
If Richard Madeley had refused to apologise to Sam Smith, all hell would have broken loose. You know
there was no forcing. You know, this is called a good old-fashioned thing called manners and being polite.
Oh,
and do you know what? Sam Smith
not
is
on threat of persecution if you don't adhere to it.
There's no persecution. The people that are persecuted are people like Sam Smith.
Oh, please! One of the most civilised men on the planet.
That's the most Sam Smith is not a man. But do you know what? Sam Smith has answered this question.
Sam Smith is not a man.
Sam Smith has answered this question themselves, and Sam
doesn't look very persecuted to me right here. He's having the time of his life.
No, Sam has said that he's not offended if people get it wrong.
Oh, that's big of him.
And Sam knows that it's difficult to change your language
But
in that way.
What's making me laugh is you are having to think so hard because
To
you're
justify.
like, don't call him he. You know he's a he.
No, and I think that video is fantastic. And the Puritan losers that have a problem with that art, well, they need to go 20 years, 30 years
But
back
what
and
about
watch Madonna.
children seeing that?
But this is weird because no one says that just because a singer makes a video that it suddenly goes on CBBC or something.
Well, no.
It doesn't.
We
It's
do
not
say it
for
all the
children.
time, actually, about artists like Rihanna, whose sexually provocative videos are not appropriate for young children. We say it all the
I think the
time.
hate against Sam Smith is homophobia and
No,
fat.
no, it is not. I feel as strongly about Sam Smith as I do about Cardi B when she came out with it, and I checked behind doors that I could say this word, her wet ass
Oh,
pussy
gosh,
song,
please
which
don't.
was utterly disgusting.
Please don't.
My teenage girls were singing it around the house with the most offensive. They didn't know what it- they didn't know what it
Six-year-old
meant.
girls were singing it.
Exactly, and I
So
feel
wrong.
just as strongly about that as Sam Smith's grotesque video. Although I respect his right to do the video, I do think it needs a age restriction.
Are you going to call on Belinda to apologise?
Well, I think it'd be pointless, wouldn't it?
But how stupid that last year, what she called Demi Lovato or something.
Demi Lovato.
She suddenly said she was a they or something. And now
Oh, now
this year,
she's a she
now
again.
she's gone back to she again. So it shows the nonsense
Benjamin,
of
look,
it.
I actually got to know Sam Smith really, really well when he was coming up in his career, and I thought he was brilliant, actually. He's a very, very talented artist. But I'm going to be honest here. I think there is a commercial motivation behind this, and I think it's very cynical because, listen to me, hear me out.
He's got a
Sam
record to
Smith's career
promote.
was effectively over.
Yeah.
He was no longer considered the
got an
cool thing
Oscar.
on the block. His music was not doing so well. The moment Sam Smith started going down the gender ideology path, back on the magazine covers, back on all of the woke TV shows, back at #1 this weekend, it's going to look like. There is a cynical commercial motivation behind what Sam Smith is doing.
Let me put you right, Dan, because when Sam Smith was at school, Sam wore female clothes.
That's fine.
And it was only when they moved to London and the pressure to behave in a certain way in the gay world and to come up through the ranks as a singer, and now Sam is going back to their true self. And I think that's
You're talking
brilliant.
tosh, because we were just talking about bands in the green room there who dressed up in feminine clothes years ago. We're talking about David Bowie, Adamant.
Boy George, gay men have always wanted to embrace their feminine side. You do it most weeks, and we embrace that. And you know
wanna
what?
see you
Actually, you are a bit of a disgrace to gay men for not standing
few
up.
reasons.
For not standing up for gay men, actually.
Well-
because this gender non-binary shtick, I think it's highly cynical.
I want to see you in that outfit on next
Don't
week's
you
show.
think it's become very political? Because the liberal lefties are seen as the people who are advancing this, and the right are seen as people who are just prejudiced and transphobes. It's not transphobic to stand up to ideologues and say I don't agree with you.
And also, by the way, no one is taking away my beautiful English language from me. And as soon as you delete gender pronouns, honestly, I've had to write stories back in the day when I was forced to by my editor, write stories where you couldn't refer to someone as he or she, and it butchers your column, doesn't it?
Completely. It doesn't. It's
absolutely.
But if a waiter goes and gives you some food, you also don't know the waiter's name, you'd say, they gave me my dinner, wouldn't you?
No, I'd
Wouldn't
find
you?
out him.
It's nonsense.
Find out his
He
name.
gave me my
No,
dinner.
anyway, look,
Yeah.
moving on from this.
He just doesn't
Boris
speak English
Johnson
very
has
well, that's
said that
all.
Vladimir Putin threatened to assassinate him during an extraordinary phone call in the run-up to the Ukraine war. The chilling claim was made by the former PM during a BBC documentary called Putin versus the West. Watch.
Get back from Kyiv, and the following day, I got Putin on the blower again. He threatened me at one point and said, Boris, I don't want to hurt you, but with a missile it would only take a minute or something like that, jolly.
But today the Kremlin branded Boris a liar while denying the claim.
То, что сказал господин Джонсон, это неправда. И это ложь. И еще раз официально повторяю, это ложь. Никаких угроз ракетами не было.
Sorry if you're listening to that on the radio. I don't know what he said either. Belinda DeLucy, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, do stand by because coming up, scheming Sturgeon is in political meltdown after embracing toxic trans extremism, and there'll be another blistering takedown of Queen Nick, whose crown is well and truly slipping as we reveal today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. But next, in Uncancelled, after being banned from competing in last year's tournament by the authoritarian Aussie mob, is Djokovic's record-breaking win at the Australian Australian Open, the ultimate revenge against COVID hysterics. England legend Matt Le Tissier, he's live with me straight after the break.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Tennis ace Novak Djokovic reclaimed the world #1 spot yesterday with a historic win at the Aussie Open, his 22nd Grand Slam title. Of course, this time last year, the Serb had a torrid time down under after the Australian COVID zealots blocked his route into the country before deporting him due to his vaccination status. So just take a look at the stark contrast between that sorry affair and yesterday's celebrations.
It's never showed as much emotion as this sustained period. It has to be because it's here in Australia. His most favourite place, he said, to play, his most favourite court. But that, certainly from last year and this, the events of this week, it's different feelings of emotion, all wrapped up in that winning feeling, you would imagine.
Well, I'm delighted to be joined tonight by another sporting sensation, England star Matt Le Tissier. So, Matt, come on, after being demonised last year by the anti-science COVID extremists, is Djokovic's victory this weekend sort of like the ultimate revenge?
I thought it was amazing. Now, normally when I watch sporting events, and I don't really have any dog in the fight, I tend to cheer on the underdog, but not in this one. I thought he thoroughly deserved his victory. I think it was an absolutely brilliant way to stick two fingers up at Dan Andrews and the rest of the communists in Australia. And the feeling there, you just saw all the emotion pour out of him. And it was just incredible. I mean, the person that won last year knows that there'll be an asterisk by the side of their name because Djokovic wasn't there. I mean, it's been his tournament. He's won it so many times. And it is absolutely amazing. You know, he was ridiculed last year. They made an example of him. And I thought it was disgusting the way that he was treated last year. And you know what? I listened back to the interview that he gave the BBC, or the PPC as I like to call them, about a 35-minute interview where this interviewer tried his very hardest. It was a disgusting interview. The tone of it was awful. He was just trying for his gotcha moment. And Djokovic's answers were absolutely sensational. He came across as a man of integrity who was willing to apologise when he got things wrong. And I thought he was absolutely superb in that interview.
It is incredible to think, isn't it, Matt, just how much has changed within a year. Because, of course, as you point out, Dan Andrews, who is the despicable Premier of Victoria, the state in Australia, which has Melbourne as its capital city, I mean, they were demonising this man. They were talking about him as a threat to Australian safety. And a lot of those people need to hold their head in shame. Now, they want to move on, don't they? They don't want to talk about it. But we must, because it was only a year ago, Matt.
It is incredible, and you know, it was just a shame Dan Andrews wasn't in the audience to witness it. Quite frankly, that would have been nice if he'd have sat right next door to Bill Gates, who was there, must have been squirming in his seat to see this unvaccinated individual, and an injured unvaccinated individual as well, because he had a bit of an injury that he was carrying and still managed to win the tournament. I mean, how does he do that? I mean, this man shouldn't even be breathing, should he?
Well, indeed. And all of a sudden, it's a little bit more difficult, isn't it, to turn this anti-vax tag into something negative, Matt. It's like tonight, we've been talking about reclaiming the word TERF, because actually, TERF isn't a bad thing. Nicola Sturgeon today has had to effectively admit she is a TERF. And I think the same thing with anti-vaxxers. It was used as a term of sort of extreme derision, really. And I think Djokovic actually is the ultimate proof that actually don't just brand someone anti-vax. You've got to look into who they are, why they made their decisions.
Exactly right, and that was, you know, a label that's been thrown at quite a few of us over the last few years. I've certainly had that thrown at me, you know, despite having every other vaccine going in my life apart from this one. So it's a very weird concept, but again, it's all part of the divide and conquer stuff. Indeed. Just to, you know, keep the masses compliant.
Indeed. Well, look, Matt Letizia, the perfect person to pay tribute to the wonderful Djokovic. What a weekend it was. Thank you, Matt. And we'll speak next week. But it is time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. Carol Malone, who's your nomination for GB?
I just want to point out that he just misgendered his hero Sam Smith. He called him he when he said he won an Oscar.
But no, and I missed it.
He did.
But hang on,
Benjamin, apologise. No, actually, don't apologise.
Sam Smith identified as a man when he won the Oscar, and therefore that makes sense about
Carol Malone, your nominee.
Okay, so mine is Esther Rantzen. This is one of our best-loved Brits. This is the woman who has contributed so much to British life. She announced this weekend that she has secondary lung cancer.
She's a regular on the show.
But I just want to also say, this is the woman who, in her heyday, she produced That's Life, 20 million viewers. Who wouldn't dream of that these days? And in her latter years, she founded the charity Childline, which has helped so many desperate kids. I wish her well.
My greatest Briton is the beautiful, the voluptuous Sam Smith. I think they should be celebrated for being their true, authentic self. And the people that have a problem with
You just insulted him.
With the people that have a problem with Sam being their true self, I think they need to get a life.
You just called them
Belinda Lucy, your nominee?
My nominee for Greatest Brit is Lady Susan Hussey, who took one for the team to protect the royal family in a very toxic climate that Harry and Meghan created for her, and she was back supporting the royal family. She was at 83 years old. Keep calm, carry on, Lady.
And usually I would go for her, but I have to crown a different but very deserving Greatest Briton, or Britons tonight. You probably know my brilliant senior producer, Ben Leo, who has tracked down everyone from royal Q dodger Philip Schofield to our least favourite globalist, Chancellor Zero COVID Chairman Hunt. Well, he's had someone unexpected turn up in his life as well. The adorable baby boy, Zach, who you can see here with his older brother, Jude. I think we're going to show you the picture. Amazing mummy, really, and one very proud daddy. So we're sending you and the rest of the growing Leo family love from me and the team. Let's hope your domestic skills can match your journalism, Ben. I'm sure they will. Union Jackass time now. Carol Malone, your nominee?
Mine is Nicola Sturgeon, whose idiocy and intransigency over her gender reform bill and the prisons fiasco has left her looking stupid and not fit to run a political party.
And she's the TERF, so she should be great.
She's the TERF.
Benjamin Butterworth, your nominee?
Mine is Nadeem Zahawi. If you don't want negative headlines, don't fudge your taxes and become Chancellor, mate. It's your own fault.
As long as you don't get get hysterical the next time any other media organisation talks about a left-winger having a noose tightening around their neck. Belinda DeLucy, your nominee?
Mine has to be Sam Smith. This is not for him being non-binary, that's totally up to him, but producing a semi-porn-like music video, which is, to be honest, quite passé and very desperate. Madonna did it. It's very old hat, and it should have had an age restriction.
Well, look, of course, today's Union Jackass, the ultimate turf herself, Nicola Sturgeon. Join the club, Queen Nick, but you're not going to be in post for much longer. Thank you so much to Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. I'm back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Headliners is next, though. Good night.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Oh, Eamonn.
Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate,